Starting 8 weeks ago, the rule is game. I'm the boss, yeah. I'll take fame with my fantasy team. Gonna rise to the top, no one can stop me. Gonna make 'em drop.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. I am your host, Nash, and let's go over the previous week. Gameweek 22 is done, and boy, am I relieved. I had a horrible week. How was your week? So, my horror began on the Saturday itself. I thought to myself, let me change my captain from Salah. I know he's not going to do well against Forest. So what will I do? I will change my captain to Palmer. So I set my team and leave it. So when Salah does nothing against Forest, I look at my team. Well, not Forest, but Brentford. Sorry. I look at my team and I see, okay, he's done nothing. But then I hadn't saved my changes. And this makes 2 weeks in a row that I haven't made my changes. And so now I was just hoping for Palmer not to perform. Well, thankfully he didn't. So at least my captain, I didn't lose because I would have done nothing anyway. They say misery loves company, and boy, is that true. I was looking at Isak captain and I was just like, yes. And then, of course, the minute you remove your Bournemouth assets, Kluivert has a hat-trick. A bunch of us were confident in Forest's ability to keep a clean sheet. That did not end well. Brentford were keeping a clean sheet up until the 90th minute, and then they just conceded 2 goals. Clean sheets gone. Although, to be fair, if you were expecting a Brentford clean sheet, you were really hopeful. Arsenal are no longer keeping clean sheets at home, so that trend is done. And so if you're doubling up, I don't even know what to tell you. Everton have been unable to score, then suddenly they score 3. And now we are faced with the question of, is Dominic Calvert-Lewin a possibility? Of course, I would ask you to wait because you know what happened when you rushed to bring in Ahmad into your team. Man City are back? Foden is going to make it very difficult for us to not have him in our teams. And then Newcastle, just what? A bunch of us also rushed to bring in Iwobi. Fantasy is tough. The highest game of the weekend saw Man City beat Ipswich 6-0. After Haaland scored a hat-trick in the first fixture, I was really tempted to put him as a captain, but I wasn't convinced. The painful lesson for me in this week was that Pep Roulette is back. I had Savio, and he did not play, so he's off of my team. I'm not about to take chances when I'm doing nothing. Manchester City have started the year in a promising way. Foden had 2 goals. Also, Doku passed the ball to Haaland for a goal. I think that might be his first or second assist to Haaland since he joined. He must have watched Savio and learned a thing or two. So Foden had 2 goals, Doku had a goal, Haaland had a goal, Kovacic had a goal, McAtee had a goal. De Bruyne had 3 assists. Doku had an assist, Foden had an assist, and Kovacic had an assist as well. So as you can imagine, Foden had 3 bonus points, Kovacic had 2, and Doku had 1. I'm honestly surprised that De Bruyne didn't have another one. He was very impactful in this fixture. Man City have also made signings, or they might be complete by the time the weekend comes. I don't know if they'll be registered for fantasy by that time, but we will see. They seem to be strengthening in every position but the Rodri hole that was left. But who am I? I'm not Pep. The problem seemed obvious, but maybe it wasn't. Ipswich just played the better team and were humbled. I've said this many times. There's no easy fixture for Ipswich, and this is just a strong reminder of that. I don't think there's a Luton this year. The guys who came up seem like they're most likely to go down. When it comes to the most disappointing game, it's quite hard because on one hand, you have Newcastle 1, Bournemouth 4, mainly because Newcastle were on some great unbeaten run. They were looking so impressive. Everybody was jumping on the bandwagon, Isak, Guimaraes, Gordon, and now they just get hammered. And if you watch that game, they were just beaten. Kluivert just looked like he was ready. He wanted to show his dad that he's amazing or something. I have no idea, but he was inspired. And Newcastle just had nothing. Another random thing is Spurs 2, Everton 3. Everton, really, this is both a disappointing and a surprising fixture because I honestly thought Everton were incapable of scoring. They've only scored like 13, I guess now it's about 16 to 18 goals. It's just ridiculous. They scored 3 and Spurs had to come back. Well, still lost. So maybe the new manager bounce is real. Has DCL been unlocked? Are Spurs a disappointing team? Is it shocking that they lose? That's why I'm bothered or troubled in calling this a disappointing outcome. But it's definitely surprising. And then you have Man United 1, Brighton 3. In the previous podcast, I told you guys, if Brighton just take the chances that come their way, they will get a result. Every time you think Manchester United are making progress, they quickly remind you, oh, no, we're not going anywhere. They're like a reverse Chelsea. Well, now that you've had my contenders, I'm just going to go for Bournemouth 4, Newcastle 1. It's disappointing because after such a long unbeaten run, to be hammered at home and to lose the way they lost, it feels like we were all lied to. Because now we're questioning, like, are Newcastle who we thought they are? It's that kind of defeat where it's kind of destabilizing. Justin Kluivert scored 3 goals. Kirkers had 1. Adams, Kluivert, Dango, Semenyo had the assists. Bruno Guimaraes scored the equalizer. And Hall had the assist. Kluivert, of course, had the 3 bonus points. Somehow Bruno Guimaraes got 2, and Adams and Brooks got 1 each. Kirkers has been low-key the best defender to get from Bournemouth. An honorable mention is Chelsea 3, Wolves 1. People were expecting a repeat of the previous match, and it delivered exactly half the result. 3-1 instead of 6-2. So I guess Wolves have improved? Or Chelsea worse? I don't know. There were 4 clean sheets this weekend. Let's look at the top performers of the weekend. The best goalkeeper was Alisson from Liverpool. He had 9 points. Edison and Leno both had 7. Henderson had 6, and Kepa had 3. Crystal Palace's defense is sneaky good. When it comes to defenders, Trent Alexander-Arnold, the most expensive defender, had 11. Kukureya had 9. Chalobah had 8. Gay had 8, along with Robinson, who had 8 as well. Midfield was king, and the performer of the weekend was Mr. Kluivert. He had 22 points. Foden had 19 points. Kovacic had 13 points. Minte and Mitoma each had 12 points. De Bruyne had 12, along with Doku. Idris Ganageye had 11. Emil Smith-Rowe had 11. And Trossard had 10. When it comes to forwards, Mateta had 13. Wood had 12. Darwin Núñez had 11. Watkins had 8. And Havertz and Diaye were tied for 7. Looking at stats from the weekend, Chelsea's goalkeeper, Mr. Robert Sanchez, is the second most prone goalkeeper to make mistakes. The first is Muric, so it shows that Chelsea could do better. I know many thought Onana would be higher, but he isn't. Manchester City scored 6 goals against Ipswich. This is the 13th time they have scored 6 or more goals under Pep. This is tied with Arsene Wenger, and now only Sir Alex's Manchester United have done more, which is 14. So he's probably going to leave with that record too. Manchester United have suffered their 6th home defeat in the Premier League. This is their most from the opening 12 home matches in a domestic season since 1893-1894. Wow. Sometimes history is not so great. It just makes you look bad, like you're historically bad. Everton were leading Spurs 3-0 at halftime. It's the first time they've done that, lead by 3 goals at halftime, since 2017, which is over 7 years ago. A random stat. In 22 Premier League games this season, Nottingham Forest have gone up 1-0 in 18 of them. In the competition's history, only Manchester City's 2011-12 and 2018-19 have ever done so or more in the opening 22 fixtures. That's great company. Saliba is missing for Arsenal. And since the start of 22-23, Arsenal have conceded 0.8 goals per Premier League game when he's playing. And that's 85 matches. And 1.7 when he hasn't featured, and that is 13 matches. And that just tells you everything you need to know about their defense. So if you're doubling up, don't you dare do it until he's back. Arsenal were 2-0 up against Villa, and they ended the match in a draw. It's the first time since 2019 that they've gone 2 up without winning. Arsenal have scored 11 goals from crosses. 11. And Trossard is one of only 2 players to assist 2 or more goals via crosses. Damsgaard is the other person. And by that I mean in a game. Since his first Premier League campaign in 22-23, Liverpool's Darwin Núñez has been directly involved in more goals as a substitute than any other player, which is 11, 7 goals and 4 assists. But if John Duran continues, I'm sure he'll be catching up soon. Potter's new manager bounce seems to be done. West Ham were unable to record a shot on target in a Premier League game for the second time this season. The last time they did that was 205-06. It's not going to be easy. This is going to sound silly because you'd think there'll be more people who have done this. But Justin Kluivert joins a list of 6 people ahead of him who have scored 2 hat-tricks away from home. Ian Wright, Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen, Suarez, Harry Kane, and Sterling. I know you thought Haaland would be there, but no, hasn't happened. Salah hasn't done it as well. Henry hasn't done it. It's crazy. In 6 attempts, Eddie Howe has failed to win any of his Premier League games against Bournemouth, which is his former team. Only Rafa Benitez has struggled more with 7 when he was trying to go against Liverpool, which is more understandable. Bournemouth, not so much. Justin Kluivert's hat-trick was the 20th hat-trick scored by a Dutch person in the Premier League. Only Mo Salah, who has scored 11 goals, has scored more Premier League away goals than Justin Kluivert. As Manchester United manager, Amorim has now lost over half of his Premier League matches. He's played 11 games, 2 draws, 3 wins, 6 losses. Oh, and in case you haven't heard, Mr. Erling Haaland signed a ridiculous deal, which is going to be 9 years. And they say it's just shy of £1 million per week, just a little shy. Anthony will be leaving the Premier League to join Betis on loan. Kyle Walker is going to Milan on loan. I guess everything I was talking about him early in the season was true. Garnacho seems like he could be on the way out. Pau Torres has left Aston Villa. I'm just giving you this thing so that you can know to move your players or to watch the space. On this day 3 years ago, Dennis, who was playing for Watford at the time, got a red card on the double game week. And it ended in -3. And that was so painful. I had him in my team. 5 managers triple captained Justin Kluivert. 66 points. I got 36. How did people wake up and say I'm going to triple captain Kluivert? How? It doesn't make any sense. Over the last 4 weeks, Mr. Wood has returned 12 in 22, 9 in Game Week 21, 8 in Game Week 20, and 12 in Game Week 19. Well done to you, Wood owners. Aston Villa have signed a very interesting person, Daniel Malen from Dortmund. He is quite a crafty figure, and if he kicks on well, he will be trouble. So keep an eye on him. At 5.5, he could be a steal. Ola Aina is the first defender to reach 100 points this season. Wow. Manchester United have signed Abdulkadir Kusanov just to enhance the pep roulette. And sorry, when I said Pau Torres, I meant Diego Carlos. He's been signed from Aston Villa to Fenerbahce. Brighton beat Manchester United at Old Trafford for the 3rd time in a row. They are only the 2nd team to ever do that in Premier League history. If you're wondering who the first team was, it was Manchester City. 5 years ago, Erling Haaland scored a hat-trick on his Bundesliga debut for Borussia Dortmund. He was subbed on in the 56th minute and scored 3 minutes later and had 3 goals by the 79th minute. This man had a great destiny. As you may or may not know, Patrick Kluivert, the father of Justin Kluivert, played for Newcastle. In his 10 appearances for Newcastle at St. James's Park, he scored 1 goal. Justin has surpassed him in a single match with a hat-trick on the same ground. The most captain player this week was Mo Salah. The most selected player this week was Mo Salah. The most vice-captain player this week was Palmer. As you can imagine, the most transfers in this week: Kluivert, 330,000. Wood, 201,000. Trent, 193,000. Foden, 141,000. Hall, 128,000. Top players out: Saliba, 219,000. Jackson, 188,000. Palmer, 140,000. Solanke, 126,000. Raul Jimenez, 107,000. The average points this week was 46, which is much lower than last week. So we're not doing well. And I guess that's what happens when all of us collectively put our eggs in the Salah bowl. The highest points this week was 128. And a break from the norm, it was a triple captain and not a bench boost. Somebody triple captained Foden. Can you believe that? Who wakes up and triple captains Foden? Well, I guess he had some form. That might make more sense than Kluivert, especially since those 5 people were captaining him against Newcastle, which is a team in form. At least Foden was playing Ipswich, so in a way, you were either captaining him or Haaland. Anyway, so in goal, this guy had Onana. The team, by the way, is called FC Goro. In defense, Lucadine, 4 points. Robinson, 8 points. Cucurella, 9 points. Luis Diaz, 3 points. Gordon, 2 points. Triple captain Foden, 57 points, which is already more than what I got. Then he had Kluivert as well, 22 points. So from those 2 players, he had 79 points. Goodness. And then he had Wood, 12 points. Watkins, 8 points. Nicholas Jackson, 2 points. That was a great team. Congratulations to you, sir. When it comes to our league table, the 38 weeks to go league table brought to you by Reno 1, our number 1 was Freddie Fariz, who has a team name which is just letters, FZLPBJ, 84 points. In this team, in goal, he had Alisson, then he had Trent, then he had Akanji. Alisson had 9, Trent had 11, Akanji had 6, Ruben Diaz had 6. So wow, he really banked on Liverpool and City. Konsa had 1, Mitoma had 12, Gordon had 2, Eze had 6, Foden had 19, Watkins had 8, and Isak had 4. Wow, not a bad team. But as you can tell with 84, it just shows you how tough it was for our table this week. Number 2 was Ken Kimani, who got 75. He was tied with Kojo Danso, who got 75 as well. And in number 4, we have Ayodele Oladuni, who got 73. And Khalid Mohammed rounds up the top 5 with 70 points, along with Ron Chisaka and Dennis Mutua, who also got 70 points. When it comes to overall rank riser, Kojo Danso rose 799,000 global positions. Keep it up, sir. And in our league, KK Wanderers jumped 22 positions thanks to their performance. Keep it up. The highest team value remains with Suraj Baigane, 106.6. Wow, that's just wild. Whilst the highest change in team value is Mud Akil Hazmi. They increased the team value by 0.7. The most transfers made this week were done by Patrick Kaiser, who made 7. Antoine Koela made 6, along with Usif Umar. Number 4 was Edmond Gadimbi, and number 5 was Ali Muddin. When it comes to best transfer outcomes, Madagani Kihoro, the man who was interviewed 2 episodes ago, gained an impressive 27 points thanks to their transfers. Brought in Wood, who gave him 12, and Foden, who gave him 19, and he removed Gakpo, who had 2, and Bomo, who had 2. Well done. Number 2 was August Manu, who had 24 points. Number 3 was Mark Moro, who had 22 points. Number 4 was David Moy, tied with Cyril Mutali and Neville Jabali, who gained 17 points. Well done. The team with the most goal scorers this week was Ayodele Oladuni, who had 6 goal scorers, tied with Jeremiah Obiri and Dennis Mutua, who also had 6. Jeremiah Obiri, well, long time. I hope you're doing well. When it comes to the streak of green arrows, Vibav Naik, manager of Bud King 15, has had a streak of 11 straight game weeks, rising in the global ranks. Keep it up, sir. When it comes to captain choices, Mo Salah is our king. 109 people chose him as captain. Number 2 was Isak. 43 people chose him as captain. Number 4 was Palmer. 27 people chose him as captain. Number 5 was Haaland, chosen by 23 people. After that, you have Wood, who was chosen by 19 people. Nicholas Jackson, chosen by 3. Goodness. Solanke chosen by 3 as well. Cunha chosen by 2. Savinho by 1. Maddison by 1. Højlund by 1. Foden by 1. De Bruyne by 1. Delap by 1. Oh goodness, somebody thought Mr. Delap would perform in Manchester City. I guess that's fantasy for you. And then Watkins was chosen by 1. And Havertz was chosen by 1. When it comes to the not so great stats, Escobar season dropped 22 ranks in our league table. When it comes to disappointing transfer outcomes, Patrick Kaiser, manager of Manchester United, I wonder if that's connected, lost 32 points by the transfers made. The Citizens, managed by Ilyasa De Bruyne, negative 20. Don Clinton, negative 16. Escobar season, negative 14. Ramon Poles, negative 11. Most points on the bench this week goes to Lawyer Malik, managed by Abdul Malik Alawadi, left 31 points on the bench. And this one is particularly painful because Kluivert was on the bench. I mean, it makes sense. He hasn't been really doing well, but he got 22 points and the rest of his midfield combined don't even reach 12. Okay, they do. Okay, so no, actually they don't. Salah 6, Palmer 2, Boomer 2, that's 10, and Iwobi 1, that's 11. Oh, so it's just half. Number 2 was Dennis Combe, who had 28 on the bench. Ye Pasua, 22, along with Reagan Orina. And number 5 was Mood Akil Hazmi with 20. Manchester United, yes, you heard me right, managed by Mark Lukwago, is the team that has lost the most value this week, with them losing 0.8. Mr. Escobar season has lost 608,000 positions global rank. Gift Omulangi has continued his streak of red arrows, and this is his 11th week in a row. The team that got the least points this week is Katambe, managed by Boaz Ogala. They got 23 points. I want to laugh, but I got 36, so I'm not too far away from that. They had Emiliano Martinez in goal for 2, Virgil van Dijk for 6, Wan-Bissaka 1, Gabriel 1, Trippier 0, then Mo Salah 6 as captain, Maddison 2, Odegaard 2, Muniz 1, Armstrong 1, Patsandaka 1. Okay, it's also not a great team. Number 2 was Hector Orembo, manager of the Spartans, who got 24. Number 3 was Escobar Season, who has been mentioned a lot in this episode, got 25, along with Ibrahim Ali, manager of Yas, who got 25 as well. And rounding up the top 5 is Ilyasa De Bruyne, manager of Citizens. They got 27. Lowest team value this week is Hilary Malik, whose team is valued at 96.9. Looking at our table, Emmanuel Birek is our new leader. A new entrant, which raises a question: when should we close the league? And the answer is that I've closed the league. There will be no more new entrants after this. I am not sure when the cutoff should be, but I will talk to my partner in Arena 1 and we will come to a conclusion about this. So Emmanuel Birek is number 1. The team is called Free Transfer. They have 1499 points. Duboy FPL is number 2 with 1458. Abdallah Kili is number 3 with 1441. Number 4 is Yusufa Mokoko with 1440. Hamoudi at number 5 has 1432. Number 6 is John Wangemi Research Set Pieces with 1424. Alan Muchangi has 1423. Number 8 is Oti Omondi, 1422, tied with Texas Tens, who has 1422. And at number 10, we have the Walker Dead, 1421. So from number 1 to number 10 is 72 points. Between number 1 and number 2 is 41 points. At the bottom of the table, Don Clinton is still holding strong. They have 630 points. 236 is Duncan Anzigare, who has 838 points. 235 is Boaz Ogala, 871 points. Patrick Kaiser got 883 points. And fifth from bottom is Gift Omulangi with 908 points. So you can see from 237 to 232, it's over 300 points. That's quite a gap. And that's the bottom 5. Between the bottom 5 and the top 5, the gap is ridiculous, right? Looking forward to the next game week. It must be mentioned that as I'm recording this, Champions League is going on. If you can, wait a bit and make your team after the Champions League games, if you're going to be selecting from Champions League or Europa League players. Game week 3 starts on Saturday and ends on Sunday. There'll be no Monday fixture. Kicking us off will be Bournemouth versus Nottingham Forest. It is not the marquee game, but it feels like a marquee game. Bournemouth were impressive last time out against Newcastle, hammering them 4-1 with Kluivert leading the way, whilst Nottingham Forest did the business and beat Southampton 3-2. When looking at injuries, Smith, Scott, Unal, Evanilson, Hill, Araujo, Sinistera, Senesi, Tavernier are all out for Bournemouth. And yet they still deliver. Wow. While Sangare is out for Forest. Their recent head-to-head has 3 draws and 2 victories for Bournemouth. Bournemouth have won the fixtures 3-2. All the draws have been 1-1. And if that tells you anything, it's that there will be goals. Bournemouth have scored 14 goals in their last 5 matches. They have been given the most penalties. They haven't lost to Forest in the last 9 meetings. 5 wins, 4 draws. Of course, Forest are a different beast this season. They've scored 11 goals in the last 5, have kept the most clean sheets, and are ranked 2nd away from home. So this game is completely unpredictable except that both teams will score. Now, should you believe this, for Wood, look at me getting ahead of myself. For Nottingham Forest, Wood. Forest, Wood. Never really thought of that play on words. Anyway, focus. Wood, Hudson-Odoi, and Morgan Gibbs-White are your favorite. You've just had me read out the defensive stats. It's not looking great for Forest, so I would encourage you, if you have 2 or 3 defenders, maybe just have 1. I think that would be the best way to approach this. If you're looking at Bournemouth, you had the stats. Many people have brought in Kluivert. Kluivert, Semenyo, and maybe Kerkez. Or if not, maybe Ouattara. Those would be the best options from those 2 teams. Brighton versus Everton. Suddenly, this fixture isn't as predictable as it could have been. With Everton upsetting Spurs and Brighton upsetting Manchester United, these are teams looking like they're promising. This is a very difficult fixture to call. I would still stick with the home team, which is Brighton, but I don't think it'll be straightforward. This will be a good game to measure whether Everton beating Spurs was a fluke or if they've figured out how to finally attack. Now, it looks like they're no longer going to be as compact as they were defending, so that makes it difficult to recommend a defender. If I was to choose Everton assets right now, I would say Ndiaye is the first one, Idris Gana Gueye is the second, and then you have this year Mr. Calvert-Lewin as your third. From Brighton, for me, it's clear it's Mitoma and Minte, and then gamble with Baleba. Now, the next match sees Liverpool take on Ipswich. Liverpool beat Brentford at the death 2-0, while Ipswich were hammered 6-0 by Manchester City. Liverpool are the best team in England, so this is looking like all roads point to Salah captain. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if there are people who are going to captain. I don't mean captain, but triple captain him. Liverpool beat them only 2-0 last time out, with Salah and Jota scoring. I am honestly going to captain Salah. I'm not even going to lie to you. Now, if you believe in Liverpool, Salah, Gakpo, maybe Nunez, and your defender of choice. Could be Trent, but that might be too expensive. Could be Van Dijk, or it could be Konate, who's 5.1. It's a good entry into the Liverpool defense. On the Ipswich end, if you believe they will score, it's really going to be through Delap and Hutchinson. Southampton take on Newcastle. Now, Southampton to me have been very impressive, even if they've been losing in their last few games. They lost to Manchester United. They lost again to Nottingham Forest. They did well to come back from 3-0 to 3-2. The scoreline looks respectable. They have found something. I know this looks like an easy victory for Newcastle, and on paper it should be, but Southampton have found something, and that makes them a little bit more unpredictable. I wouldn't put 2 defenders from Newcastle, maybe just stick to 1. Of course, if you're choosing their assets, it's Isak still, Hall, who seems to be crossing and creating assists, and then Aaron Gordon. On the Southampton end, I'll be honest, I was very surprised with their squad selection. There was a rotation that I didn't see coming, which makes this game a little bit more difficult to predict in terms of who will play. Honestly, I don't know why you would be looking to enter Southampton assets, but if for whatever reason that's what you want to do, I would say Fernandes, still Sulemana because I'm still left impressed by him, and Onuachu. Wilson, Barnes, Lascelles, and Pope are out, for Newcastle, whilst Bazunu, Stevens, Stewart, and Dibbling are unavailable for Southampton. Newcastle beat them narrowly last time out, 1-0, and on that occasion it was Joelinton who was the scorer. Do with that information what you will. However, they also had a red card very early on in that game, so that might have influenced the outcome. Oh, and if you remember that game, Brereton Diaz missed many chances, and I honestly haven't seen him since. I don't know what happened, but he really fell out of favor. Wolves take on Arsenal, and this should be an interesting game. I believe Wolves should be beaten. They have nothing going for them right now. Arsenal seem to score 2 goals in this game. In the last 5 games, they've beaten them by a scoreline of 2-0, 2-0, 2-1, 2-0, and then 5-0. So Arsenal are clear favourites. The favourite amount of goals to score is 2. Now, Trossard, Havertz, and Martinelli should be your favourite picks from their team. Cunha, Hwang, and Strand Larsen should be your favourites from the other side. Traore, Gonzalez, Kalacic, Gomez, and Mosquera are out for Wolves, whilst Ben White, Saka, Jesus, Tomoyasu, and Saliba are out for Arsenal. The marquee game sees Manchester City take on Chelsea. Now, given their form, I would say Manchester City are favourites for this fixture. Chelsea, ever since they were crowned potential winners, they have decided to not play. And so I think this really skews in favor of Manchester City. Haaland, Foden, and Doku, and De Bruyne. Pick your 3. Those should be your players. For Chelsea, I've seen a lot of people moving out of Palmer, and it makes sense. They have not been great. But it's still Palmer who's their favorite threat. And then you have Nicholas Jackson and possibly Madueke. Their head-to-head favors Manchester City, as you might expect, with 3 victories, 1 draw. 3 victories for Manchester City and 2 draws. However you slice it, it's not looking great for Chelsea. And that's the problem of this game. It is a marquee game on paper, but I still feel Bournemouth-Nottingham Forest would be the better game. I never ever thought those words would ever leave my mouth, but they just did. On Sunday, we have Crystal Palace versus Brentford. This will be a very good game as well. Just listen to these results from their history. Most recently, Brentford beat Palace 2-1. Crystal Palace beat Brentford 2-1. And then before that, 1-1 draw, 1-1 draw, 1-1 draw, 0-0 draw, 0-0 draw, 1-1 draw. So more often than not, this game ends as a draw. Although their most recent games have each side winning. The victories have come to the home team, and therefore Crystal Palace are slightly favoured. And should you believe that, Mateta, Eze, Sarr are the best bets going forward. Their defense has been good of late. Brentford have been bad away from home. And that combination means that if you're looking to the defense, Munoz, Gay, and Henderson are good bets. For Brentford, honestly, it's just Wissam Bumo and then one of the guards, Damsgaard or Norgard. Tottenham take on Leicester, and this should see Tottenham win at home. At least that's what I'm hoping for, since I have Kulusevski. Rude has been having a tough job, and it seems hopeless. Spurs have Johnson, Romero, Udoji, Solanke, Forster, Vicario, Van de Ven, Betancourt, Werner, Odegaard, Bissouma. All are unavailable for this game, while Leicester have Fatawu, Hermansen, Didi, Pereira. Now, of course, it seems like Spurs have too many players out. It should be a tougher game for them than it should have been, so Leicester will feel like they have a chance. And it's also Spurs. You always have a chance against them. And Everton have just proven that recently. Leicester were beaten last time out, and they'll be looking to just not lose. Son, Kulusevski and Richarlison are your best bets for goals from Spurs, whilst Vardy, Mavididi, and Ayew seem to be the best bets from Leicester. Aston Villa take on West Ham. Recent history favours Aston Villa with 3 wins and 2 draws. Aston Villa have Onana, Carlos McGinn, Torres, and Barkley out injured. West Ham have Mavropanos, Somerville, Bowen, Todibo, Antonio, and Fulkrug unavailable for this fixture. West Ham have lost 4 of their last 5 matches, whilst Aston Villa have won 3, drawn 1, and lost 1. West Ham are not in great form, and they have many people missing. However, should you believe that they will win, Kudus, Paqueta, and Souček are your best bets. On the other end, Watkins, Rogers, Tielemans, and maybe Marlon if you're a gambler are your best bets for Villa. The last game of the weekend will see Manchester United take on Fulham. It must be said that Manchester United have a favourable record against Fulham, having won 4 out of their last 5 encounters. Their recent form is woeful. They seem to only raise their level when they're playing the top 6. Evans, Shaw, Mount and Lindelof are unavailable. Tete and Nelson are unavailable for Fulham. Should you believe that Fulham will win, Emil Smith-Rowe, Iwobi, and Harry Wilson should be, well, of course, and Jimenez should be your players. If you believe in Manchester United, you know it's Ahmad, and then it's Bruno, and then after that, just choose whoever you think will be there. If you believe in Fulham's defense, you know Robinson is there, and Leno. Manchester United haven't kept a clean sheet in 12 games, so do not believe in the defense. When looking at captain choices, now until the end of the season, when talking about Bournemouth, I will always say Kluivert. You should choose Kluivert as your captain. Should you be choosing a captain from Bournemouth, him or Semenyo? From the Forest end, you have Hudson-Odoi or Mr. Wood. Brighton versus Everton, if you must, Ndiaye or Mitoma. Liverpool versus Ipswich, Salah, maybe Nunez, Gakpo. Southampton, Newcastle, Isak, Gordon. Wolves, Trossard, Martinelli. Man City, Haaland, Foden, Doku. On the Chelsea end, if you want to, Madueke Palmer. Brentford versus Crystal Palace, Mateta, Eze, Wissa, Bumo. Spurs, Leicester, Kulusevski, Son. Aston Villa, West Ham, Watkins. Fulham, Man United, Ahmad, Bruno, Iwobi, and Harry Wilson. Those are many captain choices, but I'm just being generous because, if anything, I've learned that anybody can score. Looking at the FPL FDR, when looking at Arsenal, they play Wolves, Man City, Leicester, West Ham, and Forest. 2 out of those 5 games are difficult, Man City and Forest. The rest are all winnable. They are suspect at the back currently, but going forward they should be fine. Aston Villa have West Ham, Wolves, Ipswich, Chelsea, Crystal Palace. This is a nice run of fixtures, honestly. Apart from Chelsea, all of the games are winnable. Bournemouth have Nottingham Forest, Liverpool, Southampton, Wolves, Brighton. Honestly, at this point, Bournemouth can beat absolutely anyone. Brentford have Crystal Palace, Spurs, West Ham, Leicester, Everton. After the Spurs game, the games are winnable. They could win this next 2 games, but they're not easy as the ones coming after them. Brighton have Everton, Forest, Chelsea, Southampton, Bournemouth. Their next 2-3 fixtures are tricky. They could win all of them, but they could also lose all of them. Chelsea have City, West Ham, Brighton, Villa, Southampton. After the City game, the other games are all winnable, but they could be given a run for their money by Brighton and Aston Villa. Crystal Palace face Brentford, Man United, Everton, Fulham, and Aston Villa. All winnable games, all losable games. They could have 15 points at the end of this, and they could have 0 or they could have 5. It could go either way. Everton have Brighton, Leicester, Liverpool, Crystal Palace, Man United, and Brentford. If the fixtures sound like they're many, it's because they have a double game week coming up. Honestly, it wouldn't hurt to just get into like Idris or Ndiaye. Fulham have Man United, Newcastle, Forest, Crystal Palace, and Wolves. For the next 3 games, their fixtures are tricky. I wouldn't advise you to get into Fulham. Ipswich have Liverpool, Southampton, Villa, Spurs and Man United. Ipswich have no easy games, all of their games are difficult. Leicester have Spurs, Everton, Arsenal, Brentford, West Ham. Spurs and Arsenal will be the most difficult fixtures, but they can be competitive in the rest. Liverpool have Ipswich, Bournemouth, Everton, Wolves, Man City, Newcastle. Not necessarily easy games, but they up until Man City, the next 4 fixtures are kind to them, excluding Bournemouth. Now, Man City have Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, Tottenham. Goodness, those are fixtures. Wow. I honestly wouldn't advise you to get into them. That is it. Do it at your own risk. Man United have Fulham, Crystal Palace, Spurs, Everton, and Ipswich. In theory, good fixtures. On the ground, they're unpredictable. Newcastle have Southampton, Fulham, City, Forest, Liverpool. This would be the time to start easing yourself off of Newcastle assets, especially if you have 2 or more. Forest have Bournemouth, Birmingham, Brighton, Fulham, Newcastle, and Arsenal. At this point, if you're already in Forest, just keep going. Let's just see where this train takes us. Southampton have Newcastle, Ipswich, Bournemouth, Brighton, and Chelsea. Tricky fixtures. No easy fixtures for Southampton, but these are kind, or at least kinder than Ipswich's. Spurs have Leicester, Brentford, Man United, Ipswich, and City. All winnable, all losable games. You decide. West Ham have Villa, Chelsea, Brentford, Arsenal, and Leicester. Now, Potter has a tough run of games coming up. Let's just see where it goes. I am not encouraging anybody to enter their fixtures, especially with Bowen out. Yeah, just don't get into their fixtures. Wolves have Arsenal, Villa, Liverpool, Bournemouth, Fulham. Their tough stretch continues, and like I said, these are relegation fixtures. By the end of this, especially the next 3, their fate may or may not have been sealed. They'll have a lot of work to do after that. And with that, remember that there's Champions League in Europe. Make your fixtures count. We're getting towards the end. Think about what you want to do, plan ahead, and choose your players accordingly. Apart from that, I hope the rest of your week goes well. Bye-bye.